Could living with inflammatory bowel disease be opening you up to an eating disorder? Well, today we're going to talk about it. My name's Jacob, and I've been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis for 10 years, and I want to share some topics and discussions about my experiences over that past decade. So let's start today's video by talking about the signs of an eating disorder. According to Medical News Today, the warning signs of an eating disorder are as follows: poor eating during meals, excessive restriction of food beyond what is beneficial for managing inflammatory bowel disease, fixation on a certain food or food group to the neglect of others, excessive trips to the bathroom following meals, avoidance of social or celebratory meals with family or friends, hiding or lying about eating habits, and taking medication or smoking to suppress appetite. So I just want to touch on if I've experienced any of these over the 10 years that I've been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. So I have experienced excessive restriction of food beyond what is beneficial for managing my ulcerative colitis. And the main example I can tell you about this is when I was prescribed prednisolone, because all I had heard is that prednisolone was going to make me gain loads of weight and I was destined to become fat whilst on prednisolone. So I took the extreme approach to cut everything out of my diet, and for some reason I landed on the foods. I was just going to eat sweet potato. I don't know why at the time I decided sweet potato was the right idea, but at the time I was just going to have sweet potato, and I thought, while I'm on prednisolone, this is all I'm eating because I am not getting fat. I'm taking matters into my own hands. And this was a crazy calorie cut for me. I'd microwave a sweet potato, then I'd eat it. And it's a wonder I felt like I was losing my mind on prednisolone because I had no calories inside of me. I was fatigued to all hell because I was just eating sweet potatoes. And beyond that, there have been times when I have decided, and even now to this day, I'm very selective about what I eat. I've become very picky. I avoid a lot of foods at all costs, and I will even feel regret after eating certain foods. And even if it doesn't even really affect me, I will still have regret for eating those foods. Say, for instance, I go out and I have a meal somewhere, and I might choose something like a fry-up or something. And then I'll be at home later and I'll be like, why did I eat the fry-up? I know it's wrong for me. I shouldn't eat these foods. There's a chance for it to potentially make me flare. Touch wood, hasn't happened yet. But I still beat myself up about it. And then when I am going through a bad state, like a flare, I'll be very restrictive. Although some would say that is somewhat to my benefit when I'm very restrictive with my diet. And I'll only eat bland foods, and that's actually suggested by medical professionals. But even so, I'm very strict with what I eat. And for the longest time, I was very strict, and I had a product called Huel. So this was a meal replacement drink. And going back just a lot of years, for some reason, I've always thought that was a good idea. Doing away with having to cook and prepare foods of any sort and have just a drink that does everything. So I bought into Huel, and this was many years back. I bought into Huel, and I was very strict about it, and I only had Huel for quite a lot. Like, I'd have Huel throughout the whole day, and then I'd maybe have real food for dinner, and I'd have Huel, and then I'd have like other Huel products. Like, there was Huel cereal for a time. I had that. I was having that every day, and I don't think it really was to my detriment. I think it actually made me healthier being on the Huel. I don't really touch it much these days. I've changed my mindset on that. I like cooking my own foods now. But Huel, I was very strict about Huel. So let's look at the other potential side effects here. So we've got taking medication or smoking to suppress appetite. Have I done this? I mean, I have in the past. I did used to smoke a long time ago, many moons ago now. But I do still use nicotine gum. And that's a whole nother story. That's actually, I self-medicate with nicotine for inflammatory bowel disease. That's a whole topic in itself. I'd love to make a video on that. But there have been times when I have purposely let myself get as hungry as possible, like delayed eating, suffered through the pain, and I didn't want to eat, especially when I'm flaring. Because when you're flaring, whatever you're going to eat is going to come straight through you. I don't necessarily think that that's an eating disorder at that point, because there's very good reason for it. It's pain when you go to the bathroom. So I'll gloss over that one for now. But this one I do connect with greatly. So avoidance of social or celebratory meals with family or friends. Then that's something that I get very cautious about, because I'm very worried about what's going to be on the menu. And I've become very picky with the foods I eat. You know, as time's gone on and I've learned more about nutrition and that, I've become very picky. And then what will happen is I'll probably make a decision that I think is unhealthy, because there's almost like this social pressure. Like, I've got to choose something off the menu. I'll choose something, I'll eat it. And then maybe later that day, I'll just be like, why did I eat that? Like, I might actually have a gut cramp from eating. Say, for instance, I went to an Italian and I had some pasta and there was a lot of cheese. And then I'd be in pain later. I'd be like, why did I make this decision? Why did I decide to eat all this cheese? And I'll beat myself up. And it's like, it's not really that big of a deal. Yes, it did cause me some pain. Let's say it didn't cause me pain. I'd still beat myself up over it, because I was like, why did I eat that? I wish I didn't eat that. So I think in a lot of ways where with an inflammatory bowel disease, you may eat foods, it may directly impact you very quickly, or it may not impact you, but you know that there have been times where food has directly impacted you. You have that in the back of your mind. But it does make you second guess the foods that you eat. And I've been tempted to try all sorts of diets because of it. Like, do I, only eat meat? Lately I've been eating a lot of meat, and genuinely I feel good. So that isn't to the detriment of managing my ulcerative colitis. But you do end up trying all sorts of things. You think about fasting. Like, should I fast for days on end? What should I do? Because it's just so confusing. You don't know what to do. So I do think in a way it can be quite easy to go down developing signs of an eating disorder, because you just get so confused. You don't know what to do, and you try all these different things. And then if you're operating out of fear and you're not really sure what to do, you end up making some unhealthy habits because you think it might be helping. And I just think it all comes down to a lack of information. Like, we are confused, we are in pain, and we're looking for answers. And I think that's where it all stems from. So let's look at some more of the information here in the medical news today. So there's a question here, frequently asked question. This is about Crohn's, but can Crohn's disease cause eating disorders? And it says here, some research suggests that Crohn's disease may lead to an increased risk of specific eating disorders. And then it says, however, these studies lack any nuance surrounding the eating behaviours of anyone with Crohn's disease. So they're not really sure, but I'm just going off my personal experience. And there's a further breakdown here of disordered eating. They say that disordered eating is a spectrum, and that includes behaviours such as restricting foods to an extreme degree. That I mentioned that I have actually done that in the past. And purging, so that would be throwing up, either by self-induced vomiting or misusing laxatives or enemas. I haven't done that, but I have wanted to in the past. I've considered it, because I may eat something and I think, oh, if I actually digest this, I'm going to be in pain later. And I've considered, like, should I throw up? How do I get rid of that? The only way is to throw it up. I have considered that in the past. I haven't actually done it, but the thoughts have run through my mind, and I definitely have had moments when I wish I did. I wish I threw it up. I wish I didn't let it go through my system. I feel like I would have been better off without it. So I have actually had moments where I've considered that. And the other spectrum of disordered eating is binge eating, which refers to eating unusually large amounts of food with short periods of time. I have done this to a degree, and that's mostly when I get a takeaway. So let's say I get a takeaway. I don't do this anymore. I'll be honest, I've removed takeaways from my life. And those who knew me back when I was in university, I was having takeaway every day. And maybe this contributed to me flaring, to be honest, because one night it would be Indian, the next night it would be Chinese, then it would be Italian or kebab, and then it'd be back to Indian. I wasted all my money. But then I'd eat all of that, and I'd feel terrible after because it'd be so much food. It'd spike my insulin. I'd be really tired, and then I'd be in pain. I'll be honest, the amount of times I've gone to an Indian restaurant and I've eaten a large meal, I always went for a chicken korma or a tikka masala, and I'd always come out hunched over in agony. And I'd be like, is anyone else experiencing this? No one ever was in the same amount of pain that I was. I was always in so much pain. It would be like I'd literally be like this. I'd have to try and get to the car. I was so thankful that we drove down because I don't think I'd be able to walk. And then I'd get home and I'd just have to lie on my side. Like, looking back, that must be related to my inflammatory bowel disease, because the people around me, no one else gets disabled from eating an Indian. That's just me. But I kept going back because I like the taste. That's why now that I've got a bit older, I understand that it's just not worth it. Like, yeah, it may taste good in the moment, but I hate feeling like that, and it's terrible. So I just don't do that anymore. So I do avoid going back. Like, I do avoid like that social eating aspect because there's that history there, and I think it's justified, to be honest. I don't think it's part of an eating disorder. I think it's entirely justified because I just don't want to live in a state where I'm hunched over in pain. And I just don't see it being worth it. But it means that I don't see myself eating that sort of thing. I do miss it because I thought it was very nice, but I don't think it's good for me. So I'm better off without it. But I'm just missing out on that social aspect. It would be nice to go and have that meal. And then let's say, for instance, I was going to go to an Indian now for a social meal. I'd have to really scour that menu and be like, what is the least saucy, is spicy thing here? What's the blandest? Like, basically, I just want chicken and rice. That's why, because I'll deal with that okay. And they're not going to serve me that, I don't think. So let's carry on looking at the article. It says some people with disordered eating meets the criteria for specific eating disorders such as anorexia, bulimia, avoidant restrictive food intake, and binge eating disorders. So I don't really feel that I have any of these eating disorders, but I do see how having an inflammatory bowel disease could lead to the avoidant restrictive food intake because, yeah, you can get easily into that mindset where, all food could pose a danger, and there's like a very selective, small amount of foods where you're like, I can have this. Yeah, and it's different from person to person. And the thing is, I do feel it is justified because we go through these experiences where the food causes us pain. The food, directly impacts how we feel moments later, days later. The foods that we eat today will dictate how we feel tomorrow. As I've learned more about diet and nutrition, it's become more and more reinforced to me. Like, I need to avoid these. Like, I avoid eating chocolate 99% of the time. I'll maybe have a little bit of dark chocolate, but rarely. And I've switched that out. Like, I'll have fruits now. And then I try and eat as quote unquote clean as possible. I will only have, like, for carbs, I'll have either white rice or oats or like a potato. And then there's some vegetables, and I try and keep it like that. And then you hear about these diets such as like paleo diet, carnivore diet. Very easy to get into this restrictive mindset. And then you might think, I don't want to eat the smallest amount possible. Like I was saying, you had that trauma. And it is real physical trauma. Going to the bathroom. Or if you have Crohn's, you might be throwing up. I've known people to throw up. They eat a banana, throw up. It affects, us very differently if we, for different forms of inflammatory bowel disease. But the side effects are very real. And it's like it says here, purging, so throwing up, and it's not self-inflicted. In a way, our body's making it happen, but we're not deciding to do it. So no, I don't think that we necessarily have an eating disorder if you're living with inflammatory bowel disease. We're actually just responding to how what our body is telling us. The signs that our body is like, this food, not for us. or it's telling you you're inflamed. And yes, we may be getting that message very loudly and very clearly. And it's like, Joel, please just shut up with that message. I don't need to know that we're inflamed. But I take it as more of a sign that you're in this state and you need to heal. Not that we're in an eating disordered state. The time I'd be worried about it is if you're in remission and you're still in a very restrictive state. Because I see remission as a time to build yourself up, strengthen yourself, and double down on that healthy nutrition to create yourself the most healthiest outcomes. And then maybe one day, as a pipe dream, we could come off these medications because we're just so bloody healthy with our lifestyle. I'm not there yet, but I'm working towards it, you know. I try and hold my diet, exercise, and sleep to the highest of degrees. And, you know, this is a big conversation to have about diet. And I think it's relevant to talk about eating disorders because you can get there. So I'd love to hear your experiences down below. Have you ever come close to feeling this way? Feeling as though that you have an eating disorder? I'd love to know because I'd love to be able to compare my experiences with others just to know if others have been there, because I'm sure that a lot of you have been there. So it'd be nice to know how that went for you, because I've shared what it was like for me. Constant ongoing battle. I'm always trying to optimize my diet on a daily basis. And it's an ongoing battle. So yes, leave a comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.